Hello, everybody. We're gonna get started. We know we're still waiting for quite a few people, but we are going to start on time so that we can end on time. So we would like to welcome you to our 2022 Launching Leaders International Conference. We're so excited to have you with us today or evening, depending where you're from, and hope that you will be able to have an enjoyable and memorable experience. I am Rosalind Walker, the Launching Leaders Administrative Manager based in New Zealand. We acknowledge that this conference represents our worldwide growth. We have now had participants from 73 countries. We have had 5,700 online participants from the English, Portuguese, and Mandarin courses, with thousands more who participated in in-person groups in English, French, and Spanish. We look forward to making the Launching Leaders course available online in French and Italian, starting with the first 5 classes in 2023, and look forward to more growth worldwide. We would like to thank everyone who has helped in some way to make this conference possible today. We acknowledge our Launching Leaders Board of Directors, partners, facilitators, participants, and friends who have joined us. The format of the conference is as follows. We will first hear from a keynote speaker, who I will introduce in a moment. He will answer questions at the end of his remarks. The questions have been pre-selected from the questions you asked during registration. We thank everyone who asked a question. While we do not have the time to address every question you asked, we have chosen questions that represent the main topics asked about. Following our first speaker, we will go into smaller breakout rooms led by graduates of Launching Leaders in Mandarin, English, Portuguese, and French. You will be able to choose the breakout room you would like to attend. After the breakouts, we will then come back together for a final speaker and Q&A from pre-selected questions. The whole conference is 1 hour and 30 minutes. If you have questions throughout the conference, please add them to the chat. We will download the chat after the conference, and we will send your questions to our keynote speakers to answer after the conference. I'm just going to share my screen very briefly. So just a few housekeeping rules. Please keep yourself muted throughout the conference. Make sure your name is showing so we can identify you. This will be helpful if you want to use the chat. The conference is being translated from English into Mandarin, Portuguese, and French. Please choose from the toolbar the language you would like to hear the conference in. We have a Zoom support person, Will Pendleton, available throughout the conference. Contact Will privately in the chat throughout the conference for any tech-related questions. This conference is offered free of charge. If you wish to donate to Launching Leaders to help people like you take the course all over the world, click on the QR codes below. If you would like to learn more about Launching Leaders, please visit our website at www.llworldwide.org. I would like to introduce to you one of the founders of Launching Leaders, Laurence Day. Laurence started his career in agricultural science after graduating university in New Zealand. After serving a mission for his church and getting married, he then started a number of side hustle ventures while developing a career in agricultural sales and marketing. In the 1990s, he turned one of his side hustles into a successful business importing and distributing computer training resources, which morphed into a nationwide chain of computer training campuses. After the business was sold in 2014, Laurence expanded his property portfolio He has spent a lot of time mentoring small business startups and running seminars helping people to buy their own home. You will recognize Laurence from the Launching Leaders videos. Laurence will now speak to you on the topic of taking control of your life. Laurence.
This is the most amazing thing. People listening to me all around the world. Wow. When you're as old as I am, that just seems incredible. Years ago when I was young, I watched a little training video, and on it the narrator made this remarkable statement. He said, "In life we are given two great gifts, time and our agency, or our freedom to choose how we use that time." And over the years, as I reflect on that video, well, it was a movie back then, I've realized just how insightful that statement is. We all have the same amount of time. It doesn't matter whether you've got, a cheap watch like mine, or whether you've got a fancy watch worth thousands of dollars. They all count time the same. We all have 24 hours a day. No one gets any extra time in their day. So how you choose to use that time, that's what's going to determine the outcome of your life. You can spend your time. On the little intro video, I showed my wallet. You can spend your time just like you can spend money, or just like money, you can invest your time. And when you invest your time, remarkable changes can happen in your life. One of the interesting things I note is that Bill Gates, the founder of Microsoft, he's basically the same age as me. He's been on the earth the same amount of time as I have. And yet he's a billionaire and I'm not. Why is that? Well, it's very simple. Bill Gates chose to do different things with his time than I did. He very fortuitously chose to get into computing in the days when, if you knew a bit about computers, you could do extremely well, and he did. At the same time, I chose to get into agricultural science. Now, I enjoyed my career, he enjoyed his career, he became a billionaire, and I didn't. Same amount of time, different choices. And even when it comes to leisure, how do we spend our time? Well, I spent my time fixing and riding old motorbikes. He spent his leisure time working on computers. It all tallies up. Huge difference in the end. Now, I'm not saying that that makes him a good or a bad or an indifferent person, but it just shows you the difference that choices of how you use your time can make. Now, some of you may have read the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. It's a fantastic book, and for those who haven't read it, I strongly recommend it. In that book, there's a little table, and it talks about how we use our time. Being very technical, unsavvy, here is a copy of that table. And you can see there are 4 quadrants. You can choose to use your time on important things or unimportant things, and urgent things or non-urgent things. You'll see that we spend a lot of time in quadrant 1 doing stuff that we have to do. And unfortunately, we spend a lot of time in quadrant 2, which is doing things that, whilst they might be necessary, they seem to be urgent, but they could actually be often done by somebody else. quadrant 3, sorry. Quadrant 2 is the interesting quadrant. Quadrant 2 is where you spend or invest your time. Quadrant 4, well, that's where you waste your time. Quadrant 4 is television, internet, social media, all sorts of things that you can certainly spend your time on, but they give you no return. And sadly, so many things in this world are geared, aren't they, to getting us to spend our time in that quadrant. You know, when you hook onto social media and you watch a video, 20 similar videos come up alongside it to drag us away and waste our time. But I want you to consider the time in quadrant 2, the important but not urgent. Your time spent in quadrant 2, important but not urgent, is the biggest predictor of your success. That's the time you spend learning, planning, upskilling, relationship building, even having fun. So I like to think of the analogy of sharpening the axe. Now, for those of you who have chopped wood, you know that having a sharp axe makes a lot of difference. If your axe is blunt, you can spend a lot of time and a lot of energy for not very much outcome. But if you sharpen that axe, you'll get 4 or 5 times the amount of work done in the same amount of time and the same effort. You get all that extra amount of split wood. That sharpening the axe, the time spent sharpening the axe, is quadrant 2 time. How much time do we spend sharpening the axes in our life? Now, you know, you can say, oh, don't have time to sharpen the axe. I've got all this work to do. I don't have time to train. I've got all this work to do. Well, I can tell you now, that time you spend in quadrant 2 is huge. And the flip side of that is the time you spend in quadrant 4, that time that is not important and not urgent, that time is the biggest predictor of failure in your life. The more time you spend watching TV and playing around on social media and all of those things that are designed to waste our lives, the more time you spend there, the more confidently I can predict you're not going to succeed in life. So what does it take to spend time in quadrant 2? Well, desire, determination, discipline. You know, one of the wealthiest men in New Zealand is a guy called Bob Jones. He's an interesting guy because he writes books about how to become successful, and I love reading. So I've read Bob Jones's books. In one of his books, he says this. He says, every week I take time to read 2 books and 50 periodicals. That's magazines and newspapers. 2 books and 50 periodicals. It seems almost impossible. But yet Bob Jones, again, he's a billionaire and I'm not. There must be something to how we spend our time. And when you consider the time you spend reading, studying, learning, how does it come back to you? What advantage does it accrue to spend your time doing that? Well, have any of you ever done a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle? 1,000 pieces. Now, when you have a picture and you know what it's going to be, it really helps. But imagine somebody gives you a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle just in a bag. They dump it out on the table and say, right, start the puzzle. How long do you think it'll take to get the first 10 pieces together? Probably an hour. It's not going to be quick. You don't know what the picture is. You don't know what it's supposed to look like. You're just searching for little things that seem to line up. Now imagine after many hours, you're nearing the end of the picture. The jigsaw is nearly done. You've got 10 pieces left. How long is it going to take to put the last 10 pieces down? Maybe 10 seconds. Why is that? The first 10 pieces took you 1 hour. The last 10 pieces, 10 seconds. The difference is you now know what the big picture looks like. You can easily make the decision because you can see this little bit of smoke goes on top of a chimney. This little piece of tire goes onto a wheel. It's very easy when you know the big picture. And I think this is what Bob Jones was talking about when he said he reads 2 books and 50 periodicals a week. It helps you to know the big picture. All that knowledge helps us make good choices and often make them quickly, which is also important. So, for me, the ability to make good choices is the biggest predictor of success in your life. Now, I'm very low tech, so I've got another little diagram I'd like to put up here. Here we have it. Input leads to thoughts, leads to action, leads to outcomes. So if you want to have a good outcome in any aspect of your life, you have to take the right action. The right actions are taken as a result of the thought that you give to it. And your thoughts are determined by your inputs. Now, here's the thing. Who controls all of this? And here's another one of my low-tech diagrams. Who controls the inputs you put into your mind? You do. Therefore, who controls your thoughts? You do. Therefore, who controls the actions that you will take in life? You do. Therefore, who determines the outcomes you achieve in your life? You do. You are in control. The choices you make put you in control of your life. And it all starts, doesn't it, with what you put in here. When you work with computers, there's an acronym. I don't know what it's like in other languages, but in English, it's GIGO. It stands for garbage in, garbage out. Interestingly, we can flip that acronym on its head. We can put good stuff in, and we get good stuff out. And what I love about launching leaders is it is all about putting the good stuff in. The more good stuff you put in, the better thoughts you're going to have, the better actions you will take, and the better outcomes you will have in your life. So my real encouragement to you all is to really, really, really consider how you spend your time. Sit down with a piece of paper maybe and work out how much time you spend in quadrant 2, that quadrant where you are putting the good stuff in. I've talked to many, many people over the years, and I find that it's lucky if it's a few minutes a day on putting the good stuff in. A few minutes. I feel very sorry for those people. They wonder why their life is full of woes and problems and they don't know what to do about it. They haven't put any information in to help them see the big picture and make good choices. Now, sometimes I watch those boxing fights or wrestling fights, and I see guys come out with huge muscles, and I'm always really impressed. And I've learned that you don't get huge muscles from lifting feather pillows. You get big muscles from lifting heavy weights. And life is like that. In our life, if you want to be successful, you have to be prepared to lift a few heavy weights. You got to expect to have challenges, pain, sorrow, failure. Out of all of those things that happen to us in our lives, we can turn around and build those into successes. When we've had bad health, we really appreciate good health. When you've had bad times, you really appreciate good times. When you've had terrible upsets in life, you appreciate the love of family and friends. So don't expect your lives to be without some challenges. What does it take to succeed through those challenges? Hey, it takes grit. You got to just say, I'm going to do this no matter what. I'm going to stick in there, hang it out, and do it. And what I'd like to finish on is this. The success in life is made of learning and applying correct principles. So the good stuff you put in is learning about the principles and laws of success. If you find and obey correct laws and principles, you will be healthier, more financially successful, have happier marriages, be more successful in your careers. And I see it a lot where people say, "Oh no, I'm just going to take it easy. Whatever happens, happens. Life is just what happens to you." No, it's not. Life turns out according to the choices you make. Now, I'm not saying bad things are not going to happen, but when those challenging things happen, you still have the ability to make a choice. And so I would really, really encourage you to make good choices. Okay, so that's me. Just remember, your watch doesn't determine how much time you have. That's a fix. That's a given. Getting a better watch isn't going to help you. Putting good stuff up there and choosing how you use your time, that is what's going to help you. Thanks very much. Rosalind, over to you.
Thank you so much, Laurence. I know that I learned a lot. I have a few questions that have been pre-selected for you to answer. The first one is, how do I know that I'm in control of my life or not?
Well, you certainly know when you're not in control because, you're always worried, you're always unhappy, you always feel you don't know what's coming. So the flip side of that is to have peace in your life, isn't it? And I think, personally for me, that comes from knowing that I have aligned my life with eternal principles. I believe in God. I believe that if I'm aligning my life with the principles that God has laid out, I'm going to be happier. But, one of the other things too for me is this, is if my life is getting out of control, I know I need to have a plan. I need to get back to the plan. I need to start working my plan. I need to look at my goals. And with goals, you need to have little waypoints, small but cumulative achievements that add up. Years ago, I took my son to Canada. My brother lives in Canada. And we went on a scout camp. And the scout leader said, tomorrow we're going to climb that mountain over there. And I looked over there and there was this little hill. I thought, oh yeah, that'll be a nice little climb. I had no idea that he actually meant the mountain in behind it. 11,000 feet. Man, we set out. And I was the oldest guy on the hike. All these young guys were there. And about halfway up, I was really starting to feel it. And one of the scoutmasters said, you got to stop thinking how much there is to go. He said, just start counting 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And you know what? I did that and I got to the top of the mountain. It was such a simple thing to break down a big challenge into little bite-sized chunks that you can achieve. Those little goals, those little waypoints help me achieve a big goal. And when you think, oh, I can't do this, this is out of control, just start the little things. Have success with the little things and then build on them. All right.
No, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. Our next question is, how can I overcome my fear?
Yeah, this is a good one. Overcoming fear. There's a couple of things that I've done to help with that. Number one is fear usually comes when you don't understand something, when you're not sure what's happening or going to happen as a result of your action. So I like to study what other people have done. I read books about biographies of successful people, and I tend to find that, hey, their life has been full of challenges, fears, mistakes, but they persist. They hang in there, and in the end, it becomes easy. Once again, when I was climbing that mountain, at one stage, right near the top, the path became very narrow, and I mean very narrow. It was less than 2 meters wide, and on each side was drop-offs of over 1,000 feet. And I stood at that ledge. I had to climb up to get on the ridge and go. And I stood there looking at it, and I saw those drop-offs, and I actually became petrified. I couldn't do it. I put my hand on it, and I stood there, and I thought, I can't do this. But the most astonishing thing happened. This little kid, this little Boy Scout who was 11 years old, just came wandering up to that ledge, jumped up on it, walked up on it, totally upright, and on to the next level. And I just had to think to myself, if he can do it, so can I. And I jumped up on there. I didn't quite walk upright. I was sort of on hands and knees, but I made it, and sometimes, overcoming fear is saying, if other people can do it, so can I.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
No, thank you so much, Laurence. Your next question is one that we had quite a few times. How do I stop procrastinating?
Yeah, look, we all suffer from a bit of that, don't we? The best way that I've found out to stop procrastinating is, for me, it is to come up with a to-do list, a daily list or a weekly or a monthly to-do. This is what I have to do, a list I put down all the things I need to achieve that day, or maybe that week. And then I break it down and prioritize it. Which are the most important? And I get started. Now, one of the best things you can do to help you stop procrastinating is to get someone else to help you be accountable. So in my case, if I come up with a to-do list and I prioritize it and I show it to my wife, hey, things are much more likely to happen. She keeps me on track. She drags me away from the distractions. And, so being accountable really helps. Get a mentor, get somebody else to help you be accountable to achieve those to-do lists. That's the way that I sort of have found to beat procrastination anyway.
Thank you so much. Your last question. I've lost control. How can I get it back and remain consistent?
I love the story that I heard one time. They did a study of Harvard University graduates. And they followed these students for, I think it was 10 years, to see how they succeeded in life and what they achieved. And they discovered that the top 3% of Harvard students achieved more than the other 97% combined. And when they analyzed why that was, it was surprisingly simple. Those 3% had written goals. They had written down what it was they wanted to achieve in the next 5 years, 10 years. And then they broke it down and went out to achieve it. And, to me, if you feel like you're out of control, get out a piece of paper, write down what it is you want to achieve, prioritize it, start working on it. Go back to that procrastination. Procrastination leads to being out of control. When you don't deal with something that needs dealing with, that's when you lose control. If you don't fix the brakes in your car, the next time you drive, you're going to be out of control. So if you procrastinate the important, you will get out of control. So to me, once again, it comes back to knowing what it is that you want to achieve, writing it down. Now, when I was married, I definitely had a set of goals. And over the years, some of them I've achieved, some I've exceeded, some I set aside because they weren't as important as I thought. I changed. Life changed. Different careers happened. Different family situations arose. My goals and aspirations changed, but I always, nevertheless, had goals that I wanted to achieve. And to me, if you're, if you feel like your life is out of control, that you're procrastinating, get out that piece of paper and put it down. That's one of the things that Launching Leaders helps us do with our life plan. And, you may end up, I never would have believed that life for me would have ended up where it has. But because I had goals and because I was working towards things, I've had a wonderful outcome. One of the challenges people have too is fear. A lot of people are afraid to try something because they're afraid of failing. And rather than fail, they don't try. Well, the opposite of fear is faith. Once again, my hobby when I should have been studying computers was riding old motorbikes. And so I still ride old motorcycles. Some of them are older than me. It's hard to believe, but they did have motorcycles before I was born. And I fix these old bikes up and then I take them out for a ride. Now, when I've fixed up an old motorcycle, I don't take it for a 1,000-kilometer ride first up. When I've first fixed a motorcycle, I take it out for 1 kilometer because I don't have any faith in it. I don't know what it's going to do for sure. I think I've done the right thing, but I'm not sure. So I take it for a small little ride just around the block. If it breaks down, I don't have to push it home very far. If that ride works, I take it for a bigger ride, and so on. And in the end, I have faith in that bike. I'll jump on it. I'll ride it for 1,000 kilometers. And, in our lives, overcoming fear is like that. We start by doing small things. When that works, we build on it. And when that works, we keep growing and developing. And, overcoming fear is a matter of the application of faith. And the application of faith often is small steps lead to bigger steps. Thank you very much.
I would like to introduce you to another founder of Launching Leaders Worldwide, James W. Ritchie. Over the last 50 years, Jim has been part of various successful business ventures, including serving as Senior Vice President for Franklin Quest, now Franklin Covey. He is the founder of Ritchie Enterprises that began in 1968. He is a member of Brigham Young University's President's Leadership Council for both Provo and Hawaii, and a member of the National Advisory Council for the Marriott School of Business. He has served as a professor at BYU teaching the Launching Leaders course. Jim and his wife, Caroline, have spent 20 years in full-time volunteer service positions on 4 continents. The Ritchies have 8 children and 41 grandchildren. You'll also recall seeing Jim in the Launching Leaders online course. He is the creator of the formula, which he will speak to us about now. Jim.
I'm excited to be here. I just want to share with you briefly something that had changed my life dramatically about 1,000 years ago. I can't even hardly remember, it's been so long ago, but I was in Glasgow, Scotland, serving a mission for my church when a man that I'd grown to love and appreciate told me, he said, "Hey, you're going to go home in a few days, and I want to tell you what I want you to do." And then he says this, and I want you to really pay attention. He said, "I promise you, if you do what I'm going to teach you right now, that you will be successful in life. But," he said, "more importantly than that, I promise you that you will be happy." Now, I've shared this now for 50 years all over the world, and I know that everybody I've ever met wants to be successful, but more than being successful, they want to be happy. And I promise you that what I'm going to share with you will accomplish both of those missions in life. You will find you'll be successful if you live the formula. And I promise you, more importantly, you'll also be happy. Now, let me give it to you, and then I'll just share a story or two, and then we'll answer some questions. Number 1, he said, get up early. Now, I share this with my classes. I teach this at BYU Live, and I've never had anyone they've always said, "But Brother Ritchie, I'm a night person." And I say to them, that's your problem. That's your problem, because I just want you to know that I've never met anybody in my life that have been mentors to me that have not been early risers. It's just something that people that get out of bed early are usually ahead of the competition. Number 2, he said, work hard. Again, there's no free lunch. Go back to your Bible stories, the Garden of Eden, and Adam and Eve were kicked out of the Garden of Eden because they had to go to work. They had to learn how to make sure that they knew how to do things in life and how to put their heart and soul into making things happen. So get out of bed early and work hard are the 2 first principles. And then he said, number 3, get your education. Get all the training you can get. Now, I've discovered that really is important because, and it's not just going to school. We can all go to university or school or graduate school, but there's several other ways to get your education in addition to school. Reading good books, reading biographies, reading, we had Laurence talk about reading 2 books a week and 50 periodicals. I mean, I don't know how anybody does that, but it's the foundation of how to find a way in life to learn how to get an education. Go to the mountain with mentors, identify people who are smarter than you are. Everybody on the planet Earth knows something about life more than you do. If we could spend a minute on the mountain with each of those people and pick their brain and put into our life what they have in their strengths, we would be the fastest way to become educated and smart is to identify people who are better than we are and pick their brains and try to copy what they do. So get up early, work hard, get your education, and then in the process of your education, you will do what J. Paul Getty, we kind of scab his name in here to take this next one. In the process of getting that education, working hard on that, you'll find your oil, number 4. Step number 4 is to find your oil. Find where your strengths are. Everybody has something, an area or 2 or 3 that you are better than your average people on. And if you're focused on that strength, you'll develop that into a strength that will lead you to success, because you'll become good at something. And if you can become really good at something, then you can do step number 5. With that, you can make your mark. Be really creatively good at something that you can be the best in the neighborhood or best in the world, whatever. I had a young man lived in my area, my ward, I call it in our church, and a young man who was just a typical young man, but he took seriously wrestling. And I trained his class one time, so I take credit for training him because I taught his class one time. But this young man's name was Cale Sanderson, and he became the best wrestler in the world. He never got beat in collegiate wrestling. He went on the Olympics and never got beat. He's now the Penn State coach of the wrestling team, and they take the national championship nearly every year. The best in the world. It's like kind of being an All Black if you're in New Zealand. They found their mark. They just become really, really good at something. And so I just point out to you that if you'll do those 5 steps, I promise you, I got one more, so don't go away. But if you do those 5 steps, I promise you, like he promised me, that if you'll go home and put into practice, getting up early, working hard, getting trained in your education so you can find your oil, and then with that oil, make your mark in life, I promise you, in any nationality, in any career, you will be successful, and you'll be good at it, and you'll be able to take care of your family and life in general. And then he said the most important part, though, he said this next. He said, if you will do those 5 steps, I promise you'll be successful, but it will also probably destroy you. Now that was kind of discouraging. And so I said, what do you mean? And he said, because if you get this successful, most of us will begin to get prideful in our life and begin to believe we're better than somebody else. We'll want to have more money and we'll want to have more success, and we'll feel like we're maybe superior. And so our very success will destroy us with pride and with an ego that might make us look bad. But he said, if you'll do step number 6, then I promise you that your success will not destroy you. And step number 6 is give back, serve others, help other people to be successful. And I have discovered how true that statement is. We have spent most of our life in trying to give back and help other people. We come home from Scotland, and we went to school, and I knocked on doors and told people I knew behind every door there were 8 beautiful women, and I said to them, I knocked the door and said, hey, I'm here, I need a woman. And they'd say, why would we want to date you? You're not very good looking, you're not very handsome, you got a bad leg, you used to stutter. Why do I want to date you? And I say, you know what, those things really hurt, but they're true. But I also know that I have the formula, and I'm going to be successful in life. And if I can get one of you beautiful young ladies from St. George, Utah to come along and spend the rest of your life with me, we're going to be successful in life, and we're going to be happy because we're going to help the whole world try to understand what it takes to be happy and successful. And it really focuses on becoming something, doing something with your life, and then trying to give it back and help other people. I had that same man many years later tell me one day, he said, Jim, he said, there's nothing wrong with having a very expensive, nice home. But he says, if you do, make sure you help all your neighbors get one too. If you want to be successful, help everybody else be successful, and they can also have nice things, and you can help them be successful, and then you and they will both be happy. And I promise you that that's the key to success. That formula really works. We spent the rest of our life trying to share that around the world to let people know that this is the key to their success, and the key to the real happiness is learning to give back, help other people become successful as well. That's the formula. And I promise you, like you promised me, that if you live it, it will not only help you be successful, but it will also make you happy. You'll enjoy life. You'll enjoy your success because you'll be helping other people be successful as well. Any questions?
Thank you so much, Jim. So we have some pre-selected questions from the participants. The first one is, how can I stick to the formula when trials and tribulations come my way?
That's life. Life is trials and tribulation. Everything, I mean, we are filled with trials and tribulation. And the key to keeping on the formula is recognizing that when you are living a formula, you're happy and you're successful, and success begets success. You want to do it more. And so when the trial comes, you just say, hey, I got to get back to the formula. I got to get back to my goals and my things I want to do in life, and identify what it is I want to do, and start and continue living the formula, because we know that you'll get past that tribulation if you just don't give up and realize that happiness comes when you're living it. And so why would you let some tribulation stop you from doing something that you've discovered makes you happy when you live it? Next question.
Thank you, Jim. The next question is one that many people have asked before. What are some practical steps of finding your oil?
And that's such a fun question, because it really is identifying good books, good mentors, good people who use watching people, being observant, watching people who are better than you at something, and then going and having the courage to go sit down with them and ask them, how did you acquire that? How did you learn to smile like that? How did you develop the people skills that you have? Why does everybody like you so much? And when they do, they discover that it's because they learned something about smiling and people skills and personality and ways they could use that. And then you copy it. You say to yourself, I want to be like that as well. And then you want to learn how to lead. Read about Abraham Lincoln, and read about George Washington, read about Nelson Mandela. I mean, read their books, and you'll discover that these process of how to discover is mentors and good books and education. Next question.
Thank you so much, Jim. The next question is, when things are not going as expected, how can you keep moving forward without feeling a sense of failure?
Failure is we all fail. Failure is part of life. I mean, the scary part about failure is that sometimes we get so discouraged we quit. We think we can't compete, we can't make it, we can't find our oil because we failed at that business. I can sit here today and tell you, I had at one time, I had 25 to 30 businesses in my life, and all at one time, and half of them didn't make it. Half of them failed. half of them didn't make me any money at all, and I lost money in it. But thank goodness I learned from the failures. I learned from those areas where I made a mistake and where I didn't do very good. I discovered that if I would learn from that failure and make sure I put that successful idea back in the next one, then the next time I got to be successful faster. And then it makes you feel good about life because you realize that you can win. It's not easy to win, and it's not easy to be the best wrestler in the world, but you can do it. You can be the best at something. And when you discover that, then it helps you make sure that when you do those failure steps and when you lose a business or lose something or have a tragedy happen in your life, you can overcome it. You can turn around and smile and put a smile on your face and say, I learned something from that experience and I'm going to put it into my life so that I never let it happen again. I'll get better at it. So there you have it. Any other questions?
Thank you so much, Jim. The next question is, how can I balance temporal and spiritual life, career, church callings, family, time for self?
Making sure that you have on your prioritized daily tasks, on your constitution, your personal constitution that you're going to draft. We haven't talked about that, but you need to draft a set of governing values. And if you put your family and your God and your career and your friends and your family in there as priorities, so that you do find things you're going to do every day and every week, that you're going to focus on those areas of people that you put in your governing values, your constitution. And when you identify your constitution, you say, I want to be like God. I want to have a great family. I want to be a great husband. I want to be successful. I want to be financially independent. If you've identified those as part of your area of life, then you'll spend some time in working on each of those, maybe at separate times, but each of those, so you get proficient at and really good at those things. And at the same time, by focusing on those areas where you want to excel. I remember one time, and I'll tell this very quickly. I remember a lady who running the Rising Star program in India and working with the lepers. She came and spoke to us at BYU one day, and she told us what she was doing to solve and help these lepers become better people and cure their problem and help them get jobs. And one of the people, faculty member, raised her hand and said, you know, how do you keep balance in your life? How do you keep balance when you got all these things going? And she said something really important. She says, there is no balance. And then, of course, that shocked us because we got to have balance. But she said, there is no balance. When I know that for $10, if I can raise $10 that I can save a leper's life, why would I want to go golfing? Why would I want to go spend my life playing tennis, doing something else? She says, when I know that I can change a life, if I can just get with them and find and identify and raise $10, I can change a life. You know, so we and her point is that we need to identify the causes that really will make a difference in our life and our friends' life and our family's life. And if we can identify those causes, we have to find time to participate in our church stuff and our family stuff. And we have to find balance in that really. So the answer is we got to find a way to do that. But if we've also identified our mission, if we know what we're really trying to do, if we're really trying to help other people and serve other people, then it is really quite easy to focus so hard on those and find the success as it comes when we take one leper off the street and help them become successful. That's a joy that we only have when we've gotten up early, worked hard, found our oil, got our education, found our oil and made our mark in life, and then give it away, helping other people. That's balance. And that's when we find joy in our life. I promise.
Thank you, Jim. Your next question is, how can I not procrastinate, but motivate myself out of my comfort zone?
Success. You know, you'll, when you find you're doing something good for somebody else and you feel good about it inside, why would you ever stop and play a video game? Why would you waste your life in doing something dumb and something that where you're wasting time when you've discovered the joy of giving back, when you found the joy of becoming? When you really do focus on becoming and then giving it away and giving back, there is no way that you're going to stop and waste your life. You just say, why would I do that? I don't feel good when I do. I feel great when I don't. So procrastination goes away fast when you feel the joy inside that comes from serving others, helping them get better in life, saving that one leper.
Thank you, Jim. I'm actually going to take a question from the chat from John, and he says, how early is early, Jim?
Well, that's up to you, really. It really is. It just means that you've got to beat your competition. You're always going to have some competitor in your business who's going to get up earlier than you. So just do the best you can, but don't waste that daylight hours. You know, when I was on a mission for my church, we kind of 6:30 was kind of the time. When I went into work for myself, I found that 6:30 was way too late. So I found I had to get out earlier than that. So I discovered how to get out of bed at 5 and 5:30 and 4 and 4:30. But I don't do that quite now. You know, it's just it's whatever's good for you, whatever your competition demands of you to be the best at something. But it can't be the middle of the day.
Thank you, Jim. And I'm just going to take one last question from the chat as well, from Boris. Says, could you please repeat all 6 points of the formula?
Get up early, 1. 2, work hard. 3, get your education, get trained. 4, find your oil, find what you're good at. So you can do number 5, make your mark in life, become really good at something. And then 6, give back, serve others, and be happy.
We would like to thank everyone for attending our 2022 Launching Leaders International Conference. We hope you have gotten out of the last hour and a half what you hoped for. We plan to hold these conferences annually with perhaps regional conferences as well in the future. We encourage you to continue to connect and network with each other. You can do this through the discussion boards we have created. See the links in the email we have sent before the conference. Check us out on social media. And we hope you will continue to be involved in Launching Leaders by donating money or referring a friend to the course. On Monday, the 21st of November, we will announce on our social media the winner of the mentor session with one of our founders. We thank everyone that invited family and friends to attend with us today. I'll share my screen just briefly one more time. And we will send this out. Someone has said the QR codes are not the clearest. Just a reminder, this conference is offered free of charge. If you wish to donate to Launching Leaders to help people like you take the course all over the world, click on the QR codes to donate on Facebook or PayPal and give back whatever you can. We wish you a good day or evening and hope to see you again at our next conference. Take care, everyone.